I always thought blood was thicker than water. I thought family meant a safe harbor when the world got cold. But standing on my uncle's porch, clutching a gift he told me I wasn't allowed to bring, I realized some family trees are just waiting for a reason to burn. And my dad, he didn't just light the match, he handed me the gasoline. My name is Lily Rose, and for 24 years I believed I was part of a circle that couldn't be broken. We were the kind of family that showed up. Funerals, birthdays, random Tuesdays. If there was food on the table, we were there. But this year, as Mother's Day approached, the air in our house shifted. It became heavy, static. It started with a phone call from my Uncle Arthur. Now, Arthur has always been the gatekeeper of the family. He has the biggest house, the loudest voice, and a way of making you feel like a guest in your own skin. My mom had been struggling with her health. Nothing major, just enough to make her feel fragile. I wanted this Mother's Day to be perfect for her. A quiet brunch at Arthur's garden. The whole vibe. Then the text came. Not to me, but to the family group chat. Lily Rose, and the rest of you. Arthur says it's better if you don't come this Sunday. He's hosting a private event. Don't make it awkward by showing up anyway. I stared at my phone, the blue light stinging my eyes. Private event? We were his only family. I looked over at my dad, expecting him to be furious, expecting him to defend us, to defend my mom. But he was just sitting there staring at the television, his face like stone. Dad, did you see Arthur's message? I asked, my voice trembling. He didn't look at me. He just sighed, a sound so cold, it made the hair on my arms stand up. Drop it, Lily. If he doesn't want us there, we don't go. Stop being so dramatic. Dramatic? My mother was crying in the kitchen because her own brother had basically uninvited her to the one day she looked forward to all year. Something felt wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. Arthur wasn't just hosting a private event. He was hiding something. I decided right then that I wasn't going to sit at home and eat takeout while my uncle treated us like strangers. I bought the most beautiful bouquet of peonies, Mom's favorite, and a hand-painted card. I was going to show up, give my gift, and leave. A simple gesture of love. I didn't tell my dad. I didn't tell my mom. On Sunday morning, I drove to Arthur's estate. The driveway was lined with expensive cars I didn't recognize. There was music playing, soft, classical strings. It didn't sound like a family brunch. It sounded like a celebration. I walked up to the front door, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Before I could even knock, the door swung open. It wasn't Arthur. It was a woman I'd never seen before, dressed in silk, holding a glass of champagne. She looked at my casual sundress and the flowers in my hand with a look of pure pity. "Oh," she whispered, "you must be the daughter. Arthur said you might try to cause a scene." My blood turned to ice. Cause a scene? I'm here to see my uncle. Where is he? I pushed past her, and that's when I saw it. The long dining table was set for 20 people. At the head of the table sat Arthur, looking smug. And sitting right next to him was my father. My dad wasn't at home. He wasn't with my mother. He was here. He looked up, caught my eye, and instead of looking guilty, he looked disgusted. He pulled out his phone, his thumbs moving rapidly. Seconds later, my own phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. One new message from Dad. "We're tired of you, Lily. Go home. We're tired of the noise, the questions, and the burden. Just go home." I looked from the screen to his face. He didn't blink. He just went back to his champagne. The tension is building, and the mystery of why her father is siding with Arthur against his own wife and daughter is about to take a dark turn. I stood there paralyzed. The champagne bubbles hissed in the glasses of strangers, sounding like 1,000 tiny snakes. My father, the man who had tucked me in and taught me how to drive, was sitting 3 feet away from me, and he wouldn't even lift his eyes from his steak. He had sent that text while looking right at me. "We're tired of you." The woman in the silk dress touched my elbow, her grip surprisingly firm. "I think it's time for you to leave, dear. This is an intimate gathering for the new foundation." "The new what?" I snapped, pulling my arm away. I didn't care about the strangers or the expensive decor anymore. I walked straight toward the table. The clicking of my heels on the marble floor felt like a countdown. "Dad," I said, my voice cracking, but loud enough to stop the music of the forks hitting the china. Mom is at home. She thinks you're at the office catching up on paperwork. She's sitting in the garden, waiting for a Mother's Day call that isn't coming. What are you doing here? Uncle Arthur wiped his mouth with a linen napkin, a slow, calculated movement. Lily Rose, he sighed, as if I were a smudge on his glasses. Your father is here because he's finally thinking about the future, something your mother is incapable of doing. I looked at my dad. Is that true? You're trading Mom for a seat at this table? My father finally looked up. There was no love in his eyes, no regret, just a cold, hard exhaustion that hurt worse than a physical blow. Your mother is a drain, Lily. Her fragility, as you call it, has cost this family everything. A way to actually live life instead of just managing her crises. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a hiss. And you're just like her. Always demanding attention, always making everything about feelings. We're done. I've already moved my things. By the time you get back, the house will be half empty. Just like your mother's head. The room erupted in a low murmur of laughter from Arthur's associates. It was a joke to them. My life, my mother's heart. It was just dinner theater. I looked at the peonies in my hand. They felt heavy like lead. Without thinking, I walked over to my father and placed the bouquet right in the middle of his plate, burying his expensive meal under a pile of pink petals. You don't deserve her, I whispered. And you definitely don't deserve me. I turned and walked out. I didn't run. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. But as soon as I hit the gravel driveway, the world blurred. I got into my car, my hands shaking so hard I could barely turn the key. I had to get to Mom. I had to protect her before she realized the man she loved had vanished into Arthur's shadows. But as I pulled out of the gates, I noticed a black SUV following me. It wasn't my dad. It wasn't Arthur. It was someone I hadn't seen at the table. As I sped up, they sped up. My phone began to ring. It was an unknown number. I ignored it. It rang again and again. On the fourth time, I hit the speakerphone. Lily Rose, don't go to the house, a woman's voice whispered. It was the woman in the silk dress, the one who had tried to usher me out. Who is this? Why are you following me? I yelled, swerving around a corner. I'm not following you to hurt you, she said, her voice trembling now. I'm following you to warn you. Your father didn't just leave your mother. Arthur didn't want you there because he didn't want you to see the witness signature. They are just tired of you, Lily. They've replaced you. My heart stopped. What do you mean, replaced me? Check the news, she said, and then the line went dead. I pulled over to the side of the road, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I opened my browser and typed in my uncle's name. The top headline from the local business journal made the world spin. Arthur Rose announces new heir to the Rose estate. A secret daughter surfaces. There was a photo. A girl who looked exactly like me, standing between Arthur and my father. The date on the photo was from 3 years ago. This wasn't a sudden departure. This was a long-term execution. The mystery deepens. Who is this secret daughter, and how deep does my father's betrayal actually go? I sat in the car, the engine idling, staring at the screen, until the pixels burned into my eyes. The girl in the photo, she had my smile. She had my father's high cheekbones. She was wearing a necklace I recognized, a gold locket my father told me he had lost years ago. He hadn't lost it. He had gifted it to a shadow. I didn't go home. My mind was racing too fast for the quiet hallways of our house. If my father had been living a double life for years, then every memory I had was a lie. Every work trip, every late night at the office, every time he told my mother he loved her, it was all a performance to keep us quiet while he built a life somewhere else. I drove to the only place where I knew I could find the truth, my father's old storage unit. He thought I'd forgotten I had the spare key. The air inside the unit was thick with dust and the smell of old paper. I began tearing through boxes, throwing aside old tax returns and camping gear. Finally, tucked behind a stack of winter tires, it was locked, but at this point I didn't care about being polite. I used a heavy wrench from the corner and pried the latch open. Inside weren't just documents. There were letters, dozens of them. They were addressed to my father, but the return address was a P.O. box in a town only 20 miles away. Dear David, She's asking about her sister again. She wants to know why Lily Rose gets the big house and the real name while she has to stay in the dark. Arthur says the paperwork is almost ready. Just hold on a little longer. The letters were signed Elena. My hands were shaking so violently the paper rattled. My father hadn't just found a new family, he had been orchestrated by Uncle Arthur to dismantle ours. Arthur didn't have children of his own. He wanted an heir, and he had chosen my father's other daughter to carry the Rose name. But only if I and my mother were erased from the picture. Suddenly the light from the storage unit door was blocked by a tall shadow. I whirled around, clutching the letters to my chest. It was the woman from the party, the one in the silk dress. Only now she was wearing a trench coat, looking over her shoulder nervously. "I told you not to go home," she said, her voice a sharp whisper. "Arthur's men are there. They aren't looking for your mother, Lily. They're looking for those." She pointed to the letters. "Why are you helping me?" I demanded. "You were at that table, you were drinking their champagne while they tore my life apart." She stepped into the light, and I saw a fading bruise on her wrist. Because I was Elena's sister. I watched what Arthur did to her. He uses people until their spirits break, and then he replaces them with a newer version. He's doing it to your father too, though your father is too blinded by greed to see it. She stepped closer. "Your mother isn't at the house, Lily. I managed to get a message to her through a friend. She's safe for now, but she's devastated. If Arthur finds out I told you about the secret daughter's true identity, neither of us makes it out of this town." "What do you mean, true identity?" I asked, a cold knot forming in my stomach. She looked at me with eyes full of pity. "That girl in the photo? She's not your father's daughter, Lily. She's Arthur's. But Arthur has a legal history that prevents him from passing down the estate. He needed a clean father to claim her, so the inheritance would hold up in court. He bought your father. He paid off your father's gambling debts and promised him millions to play the part of the doting dad to a girl who isn't even his blood. My father hadn't just betrayed us for love. He had sold us for a paycheck." "Where is my mother?" I asked, my voice going cold and flat. The sadness was gone. In its place was a white-hot rage that made my vision turn sharp. "She's at the old lake house," she replied. "But Lily, you can't just go there. Your father's text, 'We're tired of you,' it wasn't just a mean message, it was a signal. He's filed for an emergency competency hearing for your mother. He's trying to have her committed so he can take full control of her assets before the divorce." I looked at the letters in my hand. I had the proof of the fraud. I had the map of their lies. "He wants a fight?" I whispered, looking at the woman. "I'll give him a war." The stakes have moved from a family snub to a massive legal and financial conspiracy. Lily Rose is no longer a victim. She's a hunter. The drive to the lake house felt like a blur of neon signs and dark highways. Every time a pair of headlights appeared in my rearview mirror, my heart skipped a beat. I kept thinking about that text. "We're tired of you." It wasn't just a rejection of me, it was a rejection of the truth. My father had traded 24 years of memories for a forged life and a mountain of Arthur's blood money. The lake house was a crumbling wooden structure that my family hadn't used in years. It was tucked away behind a thicket of weeping willows, their branches dragging in the water like tired fingers. I found my mother sitting on the porch in a moth-eaten sweater, staring out at the moonlight reflecting on the black water. She looked smaller than I remembered, shrunken. "Lily," she whispered as I ran up the steps. "Your father, he hasn't come home. He said he had a meeting, but his closet is empty. Lily, why is the closet empty?" I knelt in front of her, taking her cold hands in mine. I couldn't tell her everything yet. I couldn't tell her that her husband had sold her soul to her brother for a signature. "Mom, we have to go, now. We're going to a hotel, and then we're going to see a lawyer." "But the hearing," she stammered, her eyes wide with confusion. "Two men came to the door earlier. They had badges. They said I needed a wellness check, because David reported I was losing my mind. They said I was a danger to myself." The rage I felt earlier returned, sharper than ever. He wasn't just trying to move on. He was trying to bury her alive in a psychiatric ward so he wouldn't have to deal with the burden of a divorce. "You aren't going anywhere with them," I said firmly. Just then, the gravel crunched. Not one car, but two. A sleek black sedan pulled up, followed by a local police cruiser. My father stepped out of the sedan, looking immaculate in his suit, though his eyes were frantic. Beside him stood Uncle Arthur, leaning on a silver-topped cane like some Victorian villain. "Lily Rose, step away from her," Arthur shouted, his voice echoing across the water. "You're interfering with a medical intervention. Your mother is sick, and you're making it worse." "She's not sick," I screamed back, standing up and shielding my mother. "She's heartbroken because her husband is a fraud, and her brother is a criminal." My father walked toward the porch, his face twisted in a mask of fake concern for the benefit of the officer standing by the cruiser. "Lily, honey, I know you're upset. You saw things at the dinner you weren't supposed to see. You're confused, but your mother needs professional help. Look at her, she can't even stand up." "I have the letters, Dad," I said, my voice dropping to a deadly calm. He stopped mid-stride. The color drained from his face so fast, he looked like a ghost. "I found the briefcase in the storage unit," I continued, stepping down the porch stairs toward him. "I know about Elena, I know about the P.O. box, and I know that the secret daughter isn't yours. I know Arthur is paying you to commit perjury and identity fraud." Arthur let out a dry, rattling laugh. "Letters? You mean old correspondence? That proves nothing, child. My lawyers will have those dismissed as forgeries before you can even get a court date." "Maybe," I said, pulling out my phone, "but what about the recording?" I hit play. The woman in the silk dress hadn't just given me a warning. She had let me record our entire conversation in the storage unit, including the parts where she detailed the exact bank accounts Arthur used to funnel money to my father to pay off his gambling debts. The officer, who had been standing back, suddenly looked very interested. He moved toward Arthur. "Sir, I'm going to need you to stay right where you are." My father looked at Arthur, waiting for a command, for a lie, for anything. But Arthur just sneered at him. "I told you she was a liability, David. I told you to take care of her." In that moment, the bond between them snapped. My father realized he was nothing more than a hired hand, and he had just lost his employer and his family in the same breath. "Lily," my father pleaded, reaching out a hand. "I did it for us, for our future." "No," I said, stepping back. "You did it because you were tired of being a good man, and now we're tired of you." I turned to the officer. "My mother is staying with me, and I'd like to hand over this evidence immediately." As the police began questioning Arthur and my father under the dim yellow light of the porch, I felt my mother's hand on my shoulder. She was standing tall now. The fog of confusion had cleared, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. "Let's go, Lily," she said, her voice stronger than I'd heard it in years. "We have a lot of work to do. The confrontation has happened. The truth is out. But the legal battle and the final LilyCalm resolution are coming up next." The sun began to crawl over the horizon, turning the black lake into a sheet of hammered gold. For the first time in months, the air didn't feel heavy. It felt clean. The sirens had long since faded into the distance, taking the wreckage of my bold life with them. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of depositions, bank statements, and the slow, painful process of unweaving a web of lies. As it turned out, the woman in the silk dress, the one who risked everything to warn me, had more than just a recording. She had the ledger. Uncle Arthur's foundation was nothing more than a sophisticated laundry machine for money he'd been skimming from the family estate for decades. My father hadn't just been a witness. He had been the bait. By claiming Arthur's illegitimate daughter as his own, he was helping Arthur bypass inheritance laws that would have seen the Rose fortune distributed to my mother. They thought they could silence my mother by labeling her unstable. But they forgot one thing. A woman who has lost everything has nothing left to fear. My father tried to call me from the precinct. He tried to send flowers to the hotel. He even tried to write a letter claiming he was under Arthur's spell. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. The man who tucked me in at night was gone, replaced by a stranger who saw his family as a debt to be settled. The final blow came during a settlement, because the secret daughter was proven to be part of a fraudulent scheme to manipulate the estate. The court froze everything. Arthur is currently facing charges of racketeering and fraud. My father? He's looking at significant time for his role in the conspiracy and the attempted forced commitment of my mother. The tired ones were finally resting, behind bars. I moved Mom into a small sun-drenched cottage 3 towns over. There are no silk dresses here, no classical music, just the sound of the birds and the smell of the peonies I planted in the front yard. Last night, as we sat on the porch, my mom turned to me and smiled. It was a real smile, one that reached her eyes. "You know, Lily Rose," she said, sipping her tea, "I think I like being a burden, if it means I get to be with you." I squeezed her hand. We aren't the Rose family anymore. We're just Lily and her mother. And for the first time in my life, that is more than enough. End question. Where are you watching this from, and what time is it there? Let me know in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join our LilyCalmStories family for more tales of truth and triumph.